Alright guys, I want to do a little short video, a little update. I already got videos of building, how to build a Gen 3 Hemi, putting it together with forged pistons, rods, cam, and all that stuff on my channel if you go back and watch it. But just want to do a little short tip video about the pistons and stuff. I've done file fit my rings. They're gapped to 28 thousandths. After I get done filing my rings, I'll usually put them in the piston, the cylinder to just keep them there. That way I know where they're at, and just pull them out. Then go over here to the piston. This one will be number 8 as far as orientation and stuff. But when installing these, you got to see your crank down there. On this rod, there's a flat spot, the flat side. Then a little bit of a radius side. You see that bevel on this one? This bevel side will always face, let me get something here. Will always face against the cheek of the crankshaft. On this side, the bevel side will face this side. Then also what you got to look at as far as aftermarket. See those little tabs? Now I don't have no rod bearings in these yet. See those tabs? That's how they go, tab to tab on each side, and those tabs will face outwards of the block, always on aftermarket as far as the Gen 3 Hemi stuff. Outwards of the block. Then when you put your other rod in, this flat side will go against the other rod. Remember, the flat rod to rod, the bevel radius side will go towards the cheek of the crankshaft, and your tab side will always point towards the outside of the block. And also on your pistons, now these specific pistons don't have any arrows or anything on them, so they do have valve reliefs. So the big valve relief is your intake valve. That will point towards the top of the block, like so. Okay, as far as the rings, set you guys up here and try to show you. Okay. This is your expander ring right here, your oil expander ring. Kind of fuzzy, I don't know how well it's shown up. You also get a piece of paper most of the time with your pistons, aftermarket pistons especially. There's how they're supposed to butt up on the expander ring. You don't want to overlap it, because that's not how it is. You break something, just like it shows. Then this up here is you take your bore size and times it by, in this case, 0.070. Then that'll give you what ring in gap you need. But it's got like NA, supercharged, and so forth. And also on your piece of paper, it'll come with a ring orientation. You do not want to line all the end gaps up. You'll have crazy blow by and it'll be bad. Rule of thumb, you at least want to get all the ring gaps 180 degrees away from each other. But it gives you an orientation to try to make it a little bit simpler. So now I've already blew the ring lands out, the grooves and stuff, to make sure there's nothing in them. Take your oil expander ring, put it on like so. Everything should just fall in place, just like that. Make sure your gaps is touching and not overlapping each other. I know it's hard to see, but then take your oil rings. These will be your oil rings, the real tiny ones. There's no mark on these orientate them facing up or whichever. They're not like the compression rings. I'll show you in a second. Okay, you see we got that gap on this side. Turn your piston around. On these, you just want to put the bottom one on, like so. Make sure it's in our C. Now, it moved on me right here. The expander ring, just take your finger or a little pick, usually, and get it to fall back in place. Let's see if I got one here. Yeah, just like that. And take your top oil ring. Just a second. Take the top oil ring. So now I got the bottom gap over here on the bottom oil ring. Then the expander gap is over here. Let's take and put it on the opposite side. Make sure they're on there good. Now you're going to take your second compression ring, which is your bottom compression ring. The easiest way to tell if they're not in the package. This is an all black solid color, no shiny parts on it. Now the glare you're seeing, they got a little bit of oil on them, but then also you see the mark right here. Any dimple mark or like that on your compression rings will always face up towards the top of the piston. Okay, see we done that there. The trick about your putting compression rings on, the easiest way, put it in the groove, push it in there like so, lift this side up and spiral it on. See how simple that is? Then you take this end right here and hold it and just work it down. Then just squeeze them together, make sure there's no catching or binding. If they are, you might have a little burr on it where you filed them. You need to take it back off and hit it a little bit with some sandpaper on the gap. As you can see, looks good. Now turn your piston back around. Put your top ring on. Your top ring will always have a shiny, see how shiny on the side? Will have a shiny surface. And again, your mark will always face towards the top of the piston. I'm going to turn this one a little bit. Put one end of the ring in, then just spiral it on. Just like so. Just like that. And just make sure none of your gaps is lined up. Make sure everything's away from each other. Like I said, rule of thumb, like 180 degrees away from each other as far as the compression rings and stuff. But your rings will turn a little bit once the engine's running anyway. But you do not want to line them up. You always want to keep them away from each other. And that's how it is. Got all those rings on. Put the bearings on it and then put the pistons in and torque it down and so forth. Also, I like to use the fixed piston ring compressors that you buy. To me, they do better. But I mean, all of them will work, but I just like these better. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of tip on that. I'll show you guys here in a minute putting them in. Alright guys, now I done oiled this up. Put oil all around the piston and in the cylinder wall. Take your piston ring compressor. This one is tapered. It's thicker at the bottom, so the bottom will be down. Just put your piston in it. Pull it up like so. And just push your rings in with your fingers. If you got to force it, it's not right. Just do it like so. It should go on easily. Just like that. And pull it up to it's a little bit snug. Then you take it over to the engine. Flip you guys around. Alright guys, put your piston ring compressor on there like so. And remember, see the radius, this will go towards the cheek of the crank, and then your tab will face outside the block. Just set it in the block like so. Make sure it's flush. Guide your rod down so it doesn't hit anything. You should be able to just pack the piston in like so, guys. And there it is. Just do that on the rest of them and hold it and guide it on the journal of the crank so it don't nick it when you shove it the rest of the way down, but that's basically how it is. Alright guys, now this is just personal opinion and everybody got their own method, but I like to take some WD-40, spray the piston, spray the cylinder wall, then I'll take some motor oil or a real thin assembly lube, put around the rings. Then I'll take a little bit of assembly lube and put on just a tiny bit on the piston skirt. I'll also put some oil in the cylinder. But to each their own. Some people use transmission fluid and just different things. But that's what I like to do as far as that goes. Alright guys, as far as rod bearings, just a tip. You'll either get that part number, just the H, or you'll get a mix as far as modern muscle goes. When you get drop in, stroker kit, whatever. You'll either get this part number or you'll get both. You'll get this one and watch a HX. The HX is extra clearance. If you get those mixed, you'll take that part number and one of the HXs and you'll one of each in each rod. You'll do the, say the H, get a lower and put it in the cap side, and then you'll get a HX and put it in the rod side. These bearings that they sent me, where I'm putting it back together, is all H's. So, but there is an upper and a lower as far as the rods go. Sometimes it'll be spelled out completely, sometimes it won't, it'll just be abbreviated. This is a lower. You can see the L right there. Maybe the camera's going to focus or not. But the lower will go in the rod cap side. It'll go in the rod cap. Just put your tab on there like so. Just push it in, make sure it's fully seated. Simple. The upper side will be marked upper. The upper side will go on the rod. Go in the rod's end. I already checked the clearances and stuff. That's good. I just used plastic gauge. If you want to get real technical, you can get a micrometer and a dial bore gauge and do it that way. But plastic gauge will get you in the ballpark. It's not 100%, but it's, I would rate it, I don't know, maybe 90% accurate roughly. But it'll get you in the ballpark. On the rods, clearance wise, you're looking for 1.8 to 2.5 clearance. But you're wanting to really shoot somewhere in the middle, about 2 thousandths. The mains, about the same, 1.8 to 2.7. I'm shooting roughly for 2.5 thousandths on the mains, clearance wise. But it's where it should be. Show you real fast. Now I've done both the red and the green just to show you. This is the red, which it has more of a range. You can see it goes from 2 thousandths to 6 thousandths. Try that too. The green goes from 1 thousandths to 3 thousandths. You can see it's just a little bit more than what 2 thousandths is, but we're in the range still yet. So good there. Yeah, just wanted to show you that. As far as the torque specs, you could either do, I forget off the top of my head, but it's the, you do the degree deal and final torque. But what I usually do, you just do 90 foot-pounds as far as the aftermarket forged rods with ARP bolts that get you in the range. As far as bolt stretch and all that stuff, just 90 foot-pounds. That's usually what I do to make it simple. I try to make stuff simple as possible and don't complicate it like a lot of people make it look. Just to give it the wow factor. I just like to keep things simple. And yeah. But I do have full video on this. Putting a Gen 3 Hemi together. Multiple videos, like different parts. I'll link them down in the description, and you can check those out. Also, make sure you get the plastic gauge off. Just scrape it with your fingernail, then take some brake clean or some lacquer thinner and on a rag and just wipe it off, get that clean. Then push your rods down a little bit and then lube them up. Some assembly lube. I just use the Lucas assembly lube most of the time. I mean, you can get Royal Purple, Ultra Slick, whatever. That's what I use most of the time. Alright guys, real quick, got all the pistons in, got the cam in, all that stuff, timing chain. Your timing marks on all the Gen 3 Hemis. Now the non-VVTs just a touch different, but basically the same way they line up. I'll show you in a second. Like I said, I have video on all this stuff. Real quick, the thrust plate in behind here torques to 106 inch-pounds. The tensioner bolts torque to 100 inch-pounds. Make sure you put blue Loctite medium strength on everything. The cam bolt, all Gen 3 Hemi cam bolts torque to 90 foot-pounds. Put some Loctite on it. But timing marks have a rectangle here, rectangle there. The dots in the middle where I marked it on the cam gear. It'll point straight up to this hole. The lower one will have one rectangle. It'll line up with the dot on the crank. On your VVT engines, this confuses a lot of people. The dot on the bottom will be slightly off to the side, slightly, but it'll line up on the chain. Non-VVT will be exactly straight down. That confuses a lot of people. But yeah, I'll rotate it over. Now the chain marks will not line back up, but if it's right, the dots on the gears will line back up in the same spots where I marked them. Try to do this here one-handed. Rotate it a couple times. Okay, right there. All right, as you can see, marks line right back up, straight up on top gear, and right where it was on the bottom. Also, your driver side front piston is number one, all the way up, top dead center. Reason I'm really having to rebuild this and redo it, short answer is, made too much boost on pump gas, melted the piston, broke a couple ring lands. Have a video on it, go back and check it out. It's the last one I posted. That happens. Had no signs of anything's on the logs. Ran this thing prior months on the street and stuff, and just wind up doing what it did. Like I said, I got a video on it. And go back and check that out if you want to see more on it. That's what happens when you try to push them. Which, like I said, it had no warning signs, logs, AFR, everything looked good. Plug reading, everything. Checked the fuel system, hob switch, all that's good. Just one of them things. Just there was no room for error. Tuner told me I was on a limit. I knew I was on a limit. I'm the kind of guy that just likes to push things to the limit, but it is what it is. Just too much power for 93 pump gas with the compression ratios running and the boost and everything combined on my build. Some people gets away with a little bit more. Just depends on the setup and stuff. But anytime you start pushing on 93, you're asking for it. Just like a buddy of mine. I mean, he runs E90 though, but he's got a Hellcat, and he had to redo his engine. He done the exact same thing, melted a piston. But he was pushing it pretty hard. Spraying on top of it and everything. I think he got the record for still having a IHI 2.4 liter Hellcat blower, supported and everything. It's a fully built car, street car. He might still have it, or I don't know if he still does or not. He might have got beat record wise. But he went at 850 in a quarter mile. But wound up hurting a piston after a few passes and had to rebuild his whole engine. So it is what it is. Like I said, go back and check that out on the video that I posted. There's more about it. Don't want to go full in depth on this one. Just go back and check it out. I'll also link the videos down below about full in depth of building the Gen 3 Hemi. I'll have him linked down in the description, so check those out. It's going to be it for this video. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.